I want to tell you about a conversation I had with myself at 2 in the morning, sitting on the kitchen floor. I had just sent what I called the perfect message. Carefully worded, not too needy, not too cold, just honest enough, just open enough, just vulnerable enough that surely, this time, they would respond differently. I'd read everything. I knew the theory. I knew what deactivating strategies were. I knew about the nervous system. I knew about the childhood wound underneath the pulling away. And I genuinely thought, if I could just find the right combination of words, the right amount of space, the right level of warmth, they would finally feel safe enough to come back and stay. They read it. They didn't reply. And I sat there thinking, what is wrong with me? Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. There is no perfect message. There is no combination of words that reaches through someone's defenses and makes them choose intimacy before they're ready. But there is a combination that shifts everything. And it has nothing to do with what you say to them. It has everything to do with what you stop doing to yourself. That's what I want to talk about today. Because most people searching for the thing that makes avoidance come back are asking the wrong question. They're looking outward. What should I do? What should I say? How long should I wait? How much space is enough? And I get that search so deeply because I lived in it for a long time. But the question that actually matters is different. And once you hear it, you'll feel it land somewhere quiet inside you. So let me start with what most people think is happening. When an avoidant pulls away, the natural human response is to close the gap, to reach out, to explain, to reassure, to prove through effort and availability that you are safe, that you are worth staying for, that you won't hurt them. And here's what makes this so painful. That impulse comes from a good place. It comes from love, from care, from genuinely wanting to be connected. But what most people don't realize is that every text, every follow-up, every anxious reach towards someone who is withdrawing does the opposite of what you intend. If you have an anxious attachment style, their distance triggers panic. You chase. They retreat. Not because they're cruel, not because they don't care, but because of something happening below the surface of their conscious mind. When an avoidant feels closeness or emotional intensity, their amygdala, the brain's fear center, can become highly activated. For them, intimacy is read as a threat. Their nervous system goes into protective mode, even if consciously they want connection. Sit with that for a second. Their nervous system reads your love as danger, not your intention. Their wiring. Deactivating strategies usually develop early, in environments where closeness was inconsistent, overwhelming, or emotionally unavailable. When a child learns that expressing needs doesn't reliably lead to comfort, the nervous system adapts. It finds a solution. Suppress the attachment needs altogether. And over time, that adaptation just becomes the default. So they're not doing this to you. They learned, before they had any language for it, that needing someone wasn't safe. That vulnerability led to rejection or overwhelm or being told to just handle it themselves. The child who learned that is still running the show in your relationship. That's not an excuse, but it is the truth underneath the behavior. Now here is where most people, even people who know all of this, still get it wrong. They understand the avoidance pattern and then try to use that understanding as a strategy. They think, okay, so I just need to make them feel safe. I'll be calmer, more patient, less needy. I'll give them space. I'll be the person who doesn't push, who doesn't pressure, who loves them without conditions. And they do all of that from a place of desperate hope that it will finally be enough. This is the part most people miss. The energy underneath the strategy is what the avoidant actually feels. And an avoidant person who built their entire self-protective system around detecting when someone needs something from them can sense the difference between someone who is genuinely okay and someone who is performing okay while quietly falling apart. Here's the thing, neediness pushes them away. Self-containment pulls them in. If you radiate calm confidence, have your own life, and show that you're not dependent on their presence, something shifts, not as a tactic, as a reality, which is wild when you think about it. The thing that actually moves an avoidant is not the thing you've been trying to manufacture. It's what emerges when you genuinely stop needing them to save you. So, let me tell you what happens inside an avoidant when you actually step back. Research by Fraley and Shaver on deactivation strategies found that avoidant adults often long for ex-partners after separation, but only once they believe the relationship is safely over. Distance makes them miss what intimacy once threatened. Read that again. Distance makes them miss what intimacy once threatened. When you're actively pursuing, consistently available, always there in the background, their nervous system doesn't have space to miss you. The alarm is too loud. The proximity still reads as pressure. But when you genuinely withdraw, when you stop making yourself emotionally available on demand, something unexpected starts to happen. Unlike anxiously attached people who feel immediate, acute grief, avoidants experience what researchers call delayed affect. Their emotional processing is time-shifted. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that avoidantly attached individuals showed reduced grief right after separation, but experienced unexpected surges of attachment-related distress weeks or even months later. They seemed fine, looked fine, maybe posted stories and went to the gym and appeared completely unbothered. And then weeks later, something cracked open. Research on avoidant thought suppression adds another layer. The suppression works, but only up to a point. Under normal conditions, they successfully push away attachment-related thoughts and maintain this self-narrative of being fine, self-sufficient, not particularly affected. But when life gets busy, when a new relationship creates a comparison, the suppression starts to fail, and the feelings they've been managing come flooding through. And suddenly, you hear from them. Now. I need to be really honest with you here, because I think there's a version of this information people hear and immediately turn into a waiting game. They think, okay, so I go quiet, eventually they crack, and they come back. The plan is just to not reach out until they do. But that's still using yourself as a pawn in someone else's story. And it will eat you alive. Because here is the actual combination. The one that genuinely works, not as manipulation, but as the thing that creates real change for you, and possibly for them. Genuine detachment plus genuine self-worth. Not performed, not strategic, real. And I want to be honest about what that actually looks like, because I think the word detachment gets romanticized in ways that make it sound simple. It's not. Real detachment is not deciding to be unavailable. It's not playing it cool. It's not posting on social media to make them curious. Those are all still organized around them. Real detachment is the moment you wake up and realize you've been building your entire emotional life around someone who has consistently shown you their limits, and you decide, quietly and finally, that you want your life back. All of it, not the leftover pieces they didn't need that week. And genuine self-worth is not confidence you perform when they're watching. It's the uncomfortable, slow work of asking yourself why you kept reaching for someone who kept stepping back. What inside you decided that was the love you deserved? What wound in you made their avoidance feel familiar rather than wrong? When we have an insecure attachment style, we learn that since others aren't reliably there for us, we must not be inherently worthy. That experience of not feeling worthy of care and attention leads to a low sense of self-worth that just follows us into adulthood. That is the real work, not figuring out how to make them come back. Figuring out why their leaving felt like confirmation of something you already believed about yourself. Because when you actually do that work, when you stop running the story that says their distance is proof of your inadequacy, you change, not for them, for you. And that change is genuinely felt. Avoidants gravitate toward partners who are emotionally clear, boundaried, and self-validating. When you're secure, you become someone they don't feel overwhelmed by, someone they can connect with without fear of being consumed. The security changes the dynamic because it's real. There's no pressure in it, no hidden ask underneath the calm. And for a nervous system wired to detect threat and intimacy, the absence of pressure is the closest thing to safety they've ever felt. Now, I want to be clear about something because I think it needs to be said plainly. Sometimes an avoidant coming back is not a good thing. Sometimes it just means their suppression failed for a moment and they're reaching for the familiar before they've done any actual work. Just because they come back doesn't mean they've become self-aware. Without any internal work, the relationship goes through the same cycle again. So the real question when they return isn't how do I respond to keep them here? It's who are they showing me they are right now? Are they taking accountability or just testing whether the door is still open? Are they moving toward you with actual vulnerability? Or is it the same breadcrumbs, the same casual text, the same careful distance dressed up as reconnection? Someone genuinely doing the work will be self-motivated to change, independent of whether you take them back or not. Their actions align with their words, and in time, you feel safe and secure, not anxious, not just relieved. Notice that difference. Not anxious, not relieved, safe. Relief is the feeling you get when the pain briefly stops. Safety is something different entirely. It's quiet, warm, consistent. And this is where your own work becomes the most important thing. Because when you've done the genuine internal work, when you've grieved what this relationship actually was instead of what you wanted it to be, when you've stopped outsourcing your self-worth to their availability, when you've built something in your life that is yours and full and real, you won't need to figure out how to respond when they return. You will simply know. You'll feel the difference between someone who is genuinely changed and someone running the same old pattern with slightly softer language. You won't be hooked by the ambiguity because you won't be desperate for resolution anymore. You'll be able to hold the possibility of them coming back without needing it to happen. And that groundedness, that quiet wholeness, is the thing that changes everything. Research on couples suggests attachment can shift towards security over time, with avoidance easing as, depending on a partner, starts to feel safe. But that shift can only happen between two people who are both doing the work. You cannot do their half. You never could. And the version of you who kept trying wasn't showing them love. She was showing them she'd stopped believing she deserved more. Here's where I want to leave you. The combination that makes an avoidant come back isn't a technique. It's not a number of days of silence or a specific tone of message or a carefully curated version of yourself. It's the real thing. It's you choosing yourself so completely and so quietly that the pressure lifts, the dynamic shifts, and they feel your absence in a way they never could when you were constantly trying to make yourself impossible to leave. But here's what matters more than whether they come back. You come back to yourself, to your life, to the truth of what you actually need in a relationship and what you're no longer willing to do without. That homecoming, the one that happens inside you, regardless of what they choose, is the one that actually changes your future. The real healing starts when you stop waiting for their return to feel whole. Because sometimes the comeback you need most isn't theirs, it's your own. And when you finally understand that, you stop asking how to make them return. You start asking something far more important. What kind of love do I actually want to build my life inside of? That question, when you're ready to answer it honestly, is where everything begins.